This information you're about to hear and perhaps view is totally the thoughts and ideas of Gary C. Clement in the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast. We are in no way, shape, or form affiliated with the parties the story is about or was interviewed for. Parts of this content may not be owned by or the property of the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast, G2 Network Media, or any other company we are affiliated with, and this information is strictly our opinion. This content is for information purposes only, and although we make reference to various news stories, we share our own independent beliefs about the content and provide our own opinions. Please enjoy the information. Yes, this is Gary Clement from the Gary Clement Radio Show and Podcast. And today we are so blessed to have a gentleman that I just recently found on LinkedIn. And he's an author of at least 5 books, a musician, a motivational speaker, and he wears a few more hats. The reason I was interested in this story was because I came across this title, From Poverty to Prison to Prosperity, like I said, on LinkedIn. And I could immediately see that there was more to the story, so I had to just ask him to share his story. And so today, our special guest is Mr. Sean Ingram. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Okay, so first of all, you were an author, an actor, a motivational speaker, a musician, and minister. What sparked all of this creativity, and how did all of this manifest into your life?
Oh man, truthfully, it's just God, man. That's what He gave me. Even as a child, I was 8 years old. I saw visions and I had words in my mind, and especially being so young and poor and feeling so worthless. I guess that's what God gave me to comfort me. Was the ability to just create words, and as I grew older, I remember, laying in the bed one day, laying on the bed, looking up at the ceiling, and, one of my aunts, she was up visiting us, and she said, Rita Mae, that's my grandmama, she's like, I think your baby crazy. Like he's staring at the ceiling, talking to himself, and, but that's the gift that God gave me, and definitely not understanding what it would manifest into or anything like that, but I just always been that creative child and always had different visions.
I see. Okay. And just what was it like, in a household where you considered poor? How many brothers and sisters did you have? Was your father in the home? Tell us about your family life growing up, please.
Well, I grew up with my grandmother. Like I said, we outside of Wilson, North Carolina, a little place called Stantonsburg, down a dirt path behind a cornfield. I'm only 46 years old now, and I grew up with an outhouse until I was 10 years old. So, poverty was definitely in severe poverty. And my mother at that time, she was still battling her drug addiction, and my father was still incarcerated. I later had a little brother, but he stayed with my mother in Goldsboro. So I grew up with an uncle in the household. Unfortunately, he was an alcoholic. So, he had a lot of issues on his own. So I guess I found writing and just mentally trying to escape the chaos I felt I lived in, and just kind of wished I was in a better situation. Now, ironically, I always talk about it now that even though we grew up very poor and, the situation was what it was, grandmama's love was more than anything in the world, though, and so she always just encouraged me to believe in myself and to dream and to dream that it could be more than what it is. And she's lived her life in a sense, and now I have to live mine and, dream the biggest dream that you can ever imagine and dream you being successful. And, she always just taught me to dream. So I think that was invaluable, especially growing up in the situation and the conditions that we did.
I see. Okay. When it comes to discipline, in the household, who was the disciplinarian in the family?
Oh, it was definitely grandmama. Grandmama, she was a small, frail woman, but she said what she said. She meant what she meant. You know what I mean? And she ain't mind at all, beating or back in them days, That's when you went and got your own switch, and you braided it up, and as it got older, it got a little bit bigger. It went from switches, maybe the drop cords, maybe the plank boards, but as definitely grandmama. And and I was actually just telling a friend this not long ago. It's crazy because I grew up and went to the streets and stuff like that, and I remember after grandmama started getting a little bit older and she couldn't beat me, or I was getting too big or whatever that it would hurt. I remember her words used to pierce my soul more than anything. And she kind of transformed from trying to beat me to just saying, "Hey, baby, you hurt my feelings." And I think that hurt me more than anything, and that's what kind of stuck with me
I see. Okay.
throughout.
Okay. Okay. So the first time you got in trouble, what did you do and what, occurred thereafter, which you, I guess, felt like, hey, nothing's going to happen, so I can do something else. And it just continued. What was that first thing, I guess?
I think the first thing that I guess happened in my life that I didn't, I guess what you're saying, what I didn't really get in trouble for, didn't have a hard consequence for.
Right. Yes, sir. Right. Right.
I grew up more of a fighter. Fighting was my thing, and as I grew up fighting, grandma, like you said, she would talk to me, but I really wouldn't get discipline like that, because I think she understood the anger that I had, especially being in the situation that I was, trying to figure out, why I'm not with my mom and why my mama don't love me, and not understanding a lot of the situations. So I think she had a lot of empathy for me. So she didn't discipline me
I
that
see.
way. Um,
Hmm.
mhm.
Okay. Okay. So what was the age in which you first went to, jail, or what exactly? How did, that particular situation, transpire?
The first age I went to jail, I was 17, and some of me and my friends, we had some stolen cars, and I remember I went to jail, and until they figured that out, and I called my granddaddy to come get me that night, and at that time I had moved in with my great grandfather. I moved away from my grandmother to my great grandfather house because my great grand, my mother's mother had passed away, so he was kind of here by himself. And I remember calling him to come get me. He said, "Well, you put yourself in there. I'll come tomorrow. I'm about to go to sleep." But yeah, it was for being with some friends, and we had us in a stolen car.
Mm, I see. Okay. And so here you are for the first time in jail, I guess. I'm pretty sure, other than your friend, that you didn't know anybody else and stuff in there. So, what was it experience like for you?
You it it was definitely terrifying, at the beginning, because it was like, oh man, this is reality, right? But unfortunately, I did know people, right? I did have my friends, and then I knew other people at the same time, and because I grew up out in Wilson, North Carolina, outside of Wilson, like I said, in Stantonburg, but mostly I was in Wilson a lot. So a lot of the people that was in the same world that I was in, you would see in these conditions, and you know, definitely didn't want to go back. But I think what happened at that time, yeah, I I think that was the beginning of becoming institutionalized, if that make any sense,
I
right?
see.
To say, hey, I don't want to do it, but I know I can do it.
I see. I see. So, I guess, before the last times you actually went to jail or to prison, how many times had you been incarcerated, before this?
Before I went to prison, it was probably about 2 or 3 times, and from then on, it was more about driving. I was real terrible for some reason about getting some license. I lost my license at 16, especially after all that car stuff went down with the stolen cars, and I didn't even get my license back till I was like 30 something after I came out of prison. So every time I would get stopped driving with revoked license, I would have to go in a little bit, and like I said, but I was just determined I was gonna drive, so just being hard headed, being young and hard headed. So probably a couple of times, but when I went to prison, I was 22 years old. And that's when I went to prison, federal prison for 5 years at 22 years old.
Wow, I see. I see. So that really, just I guess, gave you a new reality, something that you had to just figure out how am I going to work my way through this.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I always tell people in hindsight, truthfully, prison was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life, because it was the time that God stopped me and sat me down and said, hey, look, man, I'm saving you. Like, I'm saving you, sending you to prison, because where the mindset and the mentality of me and my friends was at that time, it was us against the world, all or nothing, right? Live or die in a sense. So, it was a blessing that I actually went to prison when I went, because it would be no telling where I would be if I continued the path that I was on. Um, and so, prison definitely saved my life at that particular time. And the same thing, at that time, being in the streets and, having that mindset, I went and, just to say, hey, this is what I got to do. And unfortunately, four of my co-defendants or three of my other co-defendants was my cousins, right? And I wasn't unfamiliar with the territory, or, I had people around me that I still knew. I had friends that I known from the streets that was in prison also. So unfortunately, and I think that's a problem. I think, when I think about it now, I think that's a problem. We so easily adapt to negative situations because we're used to negative situations.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, cool. So this book that you have, From Poverty to Prison to Prosperity, how did this book come about? What did it take? I guess all of those years of going back and forth to jail and then to prison, just I guess just break this down for us. How you put this story together to basically come out with this particular book, please.
It was just something that God laid on my heart. Like, I believe that I believe sometimes when you're walking in the dark and you don't have nobody to show you the light, you stay in the dark, right? And so one of my quotes is, God lifted me up so I can uplift you. I believe that God took me through and brought me through everything that I've been through so I can give back, looking at hindsight. And this is his purpose and his mission. So the book really came from to say, hey, what can I tell my youth? What can I give my youth to kids that was in my same mindset? How can I inspire men coming out of prison? How can I inspire homeless people? How can I inspire people that feel like giving up? Because I suffer from a lot of mental health issues also. So what the book is truly is what I went through, how I got through, and what I learned from it to help me get me where I am now. So it's kind of like a blueprint, to my success, right? And it may not be for everybody. It may not work for everybody, but it's just for whoever it's for, right? To say, and I rewrote that book probably 2 or 3 times.
Wow.
And I remember when I first started writing it at this time, because you grow as an author, you grow as an educator and an intellectual. So at this time, I'm writing it as an intellectual. I'm writing it, as the person who's been studied and learned and all these words and stuff in my mind. And God said, nah, that ain't what I want you to do. I want you to speak in layman's term. I want you to talk to people that if you're sitting on your sidewalk or if you're sitting on a stoop talking to them, like let them know what you've been through, how you got through, and what you learned from it to help you get to where you are now, to give them hope and success, to say, hey, you know what? My days look very dark right now, but I know it's possible because I could see Sean's story and I could relate to his story. So if he could do it, I know God would do it for me too.
I see. Okay. Now, one of the blessings out of this journey that you took was the Sean Ingram Academy. Talk a little bit about that,
Yes.
please. Uh huh.
Yeah, the Sean Ingham Academy is basically, our mission in my ministry is to engage, enlighten, and elevate, right? I just believe that when when you when we can inspire people and encourage people, but also give them, soft skill, cognitive skills, trades, to actually build whatever on their foundation, then we can help, people so much more. And for me, I was a very creative kid, but being a very creative kid and a visionary, I felt alone a lot of times. And I feel like a lot of times the educational system don't teach creative kids or towards creative kids. We're wired a little bit different. So what the Sean Ingram Academy is, it's just to teach kids to their own liking of learning and in so many different ways. But the major goal for the academy is to teach individual self, right? I don't believe we're taught self. I don't remember nobody teaching me my power in life and my, how I learn and my gifts and my talents and what makes me special and what makes me unique. And I don't remember people teaching me that, and how to utilize math and how to utilize science and to benefit me, right? So what we do with the Sean Ingram Academy, I mean, we have three different components. We used to have a nail technology program, but that went away with COVID, and that was teaching young girls or women how to do nails so they could become licensed manicurists. So that program went away, but we still do the juvenile diversion and intervention programs, where I teach a evidence-based program called aggression replacement training, just mindset, right? And then we also do mentoring programs, and then I do the creative writing summer camps, teaching kids how to think and verbalize what they're actually thinking. I think one of our problems when it comes to communication is we have all this stuff on our mind, but we don't know how to articulate what we have on our mind. So we teach kids how to articulate in a proper way, so we don't get in trouble so much in school, because we know what we want to say, we just don't know how to say it all the way, all the time.
Yes, sir.
Um,
Okay.
and then just other different creative art programs.
I see. Okay. And all of these programs are a part of the Wake County system, or where do your students come from actually?
Yeah, I have partnered with the Wake County Public School System. At one time I partnered with the Raleigh Police Department. But yeah, they just come from, truthfully now more parents than anything. I kind of broke away from different tables, because sometimes when you're in contracts and things, you can't really help a kid the way they need to be helped. And so I just learned to build my own table. I do a lot of work at the North Carolina Museum of Art, which I've been blessed to have a partnership with them to utilize their facility. But unfortunately, especially when it comes to our at-risk youth and our diversion and intervention programs, we don't have a lack of kids and needing services. So being that I've been doing it so long now, and people just know about the program, I get a lot of parents that just contact me directly now.
Yes, sir. I see. Okay. Okay, cool. So as far as, all of these different things that you're doing, what's your ultimate goal? Where do you want all of this to actually, uh, grow to, I guess?
Decrease the recidivism. I mean, themselves. Truthfully, it's about ownership for me. Owning your thoughts, owning your ideas, owning your knowledge. To say, okay, I know I have value, right? I know I could do this because I know I'm good at this, or I believe in this, or I can make this happen. And like I said, at the end of the day, I believe that recidivism or at-risk youth or poverty come from three different things: lack of education, lack of support, and then lack of finances. So what we try to do at the Sean Ingram Academy is honestly just eliminate at least two of the three, hopefully all three of those things, because we try to give that support, that accountability support, that mentorship. Then we try to give the educational aspect of it, teaching them how to learn. A lot of our kids don't know how to learn. They don't understand why science is important, math is important. They don't understand how it's going to relate to them. They don't understand how to strategize for success. And then lack of finances. If we can build a bridge to say, hey, there's a summer camp over here, there's a job opportunity here, or even with the Sean Ingram Academy, sometimes we give job opportunities at my different shows and different events that I do, helping kids just build some type of finances. So I just try to eliminate at least two of those three things, but hopefully all three, just to kind of give a kid a better platform to become successful on.
I see. Okay. And I understand that you also a husband and a father. How do they play a role into what you're doing these days?
Well, being a father, that changed a lot, because I have two girls, and then just trying to learn balance, being a husband, being a father, then being a leader, I guess what you want to say, in the community. Um, but it just gives me more perspective of how important it really is, and how important it is for kids to have a balanced family life, and how important it is for kids to have, like you said, that discipline aspect. And it's not easy, what I mean? Like, I have issues with my own kids, right? Because, any kid, when you're an authority figure and things like that, it becomes hard. So, but, I've been blessed to have a wife that I could work with, and we use our own gifts to teach our kids, right? Uh, she's more nurturing. I'm more disciplined. So we kind of use that balance. And then I learned so much working with other kids that I try to incorporate with my kids at the same time. Then I learned so much from my kids to help me understand and better communicate with other kids. So, I think it plays, a great role in everything that I do.
I see. Okay. And so, for young people who are listening to this conversation and going down the wrong road, what's your advice to them or whatnot today?
Become selfish, truthfully. Like, you know, I think we think about the word selfish as a bad term or in a negative connotation. But when started learning how to become selfish, when I learned how to start say no, when I learned how to say, man, no, that's not a good idea for me. I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to hinder me in the future, or that's going to be a negative thing for me, later on. Um, and to say, no, I need to study because I want to go to college, or man, look, I'm a basketball player, but I ain't got time to go to the club tonight. I need to be, studying for this test tomorrow because I got practice. I got a game. And when you have this more selfish mindset to say, I need to take care of myself because my goal is to help take care of the people around me one day. And so when we're not leaders and not don't have a selfish mindset, we fall into these traps and just kind of we're wandering, right? And so I think one of the greatest detriments to our youth are, now we have a lot of kids that's just wondering. They don't have a game plan. They don't have a goal. They don't have an idea what they're going to do next. And they don't have a vision of tomorrow or 5 years or 10 years or anything like that. They're just wondering. It's day by day. It's moment by moment in a sense. So we try to give that strategy, that vision, and then help them strategize from where they are now to the success they want to have.
The internet, how has that played a role in you basically being able to distribute and put your message and stuff out there and draw people from far and near and people that know you, that don't know you? How has that played a role in your new career here now?
It's definitely been a blessing. We joke and laugh about it now. I come from a world where, doing shows 10, 15 years ago, we had to print up the flyers in Kinko's at night and four up, four down, and cut them up and go out and put them on cars and everything now. And like you said, to wake up on a Saturday morning and hit 5 to 10, 15, 20,000 people in 5 minutes just because you put a post up, it's definitely different. But me as an author and even a motivational speaker, spoken word artist, I had to learn how to adapt to it. I'm a in person, I'm an in person type person. Like, I like to be in person, right? So it took me a long time to really adapt to, doing online interviews and doing online seminars and workshops and stuff like that. Especially when COVID came, everything was Zoom. So you don't have that same energy, right? And so it took a little while to manage that. But at the same time, like I said, it's definitely, when it comes to being available. And one of my greatest stories, I learned this from my 12-year-old little girl, right? When Justice closed down, Justice, the clothing store for little, and I was like, man, what happened? I thought it was successful. Why they go out of business? And they was like, oh no, they just closed down the brick and mortar. Now everything is online. You can order it online. So being a businessman, when I looked at having a actual facility, and I was like, man, the Sean Ingram Academy could really just be online, and I could work and go and visit these kids, and then I could bring all these kids up on a Saturday morning at 10. They could just log in, So it just makes, you 10 times more available. I could be at a school in Los Angeles in the morning, right? Sitting right in my house. So the availability of the internet is definitely phenomenal.
Right. Okay, wonderful. And my wife has a question here.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Ingram, yes. Quick question. In this day and age where you have more and more kids with learning disabilities and learning delays, one of which being autism, what kind of programs do you have for kids that they term atypical, or that quote unquote have learning delays? Um, and the reason why I asked, we had a daughter
Hmm.
who quote unquote had autism, and
Hmm.
she was diagnosed at a very early age, and we learned over time that it she was very bright, and sometimes kids with learning delays are some of the smartest children that you may ever encounter. It's just a matter of catching them at the right age and literally almost like turning on a switch. So, with that being said, what kind of provisions do you have to address kids with learning delays?
Well, each school should have different programs. I do have some friends that I could reach out to, and like you said, they're more in the therapist world, but they might have some better resources. But truthfully, it comes from, to me, the educator, right? Because I'm dyslexic and never had a learning disability. I just learned differently, if that make any sense. And so I had this one teacher who taught me how I learned and how to learn. And that made all the difference in the world to me. And so I went from failing, and especially when it comes to English and stuff like that, I know I'm gifted when it comes to words, but because of how he taught me, and he taught me how I learned, it, like you said, that bright light went off. And then I had a math teacher later on, and I hated math, and I failed at math all the time. But the way he taught me, I could understand it, and he taught me a little bit slower. And I think sometimes it's breaking away from maybe a bigger class, a bigger setting, to more of a direct to say, okay, you might need a little bit more time, or for me, a teacher need to teach it 2 or 3 different ways. Okay, we come from the world of them writing it on the what's that little projector, the film projector, right? I had one teacher, she would write it on the film projector, and I could never write it down and all that stuff by the time she would erase it. But I need somebody to write it. I need somebody to speak it. I need somebody to visually kind of make analysis or you know analogies to help me understand it. I need so just kind of figuring out what type of system or what type of educator she needs to learn for her, and asking them to say, hey, can you take her out of these type of classes, and is there a way that, because she can't be the only kid in the school with the same situation, right?
That's right.
And sometimes I think we just got to take kids out sometimes, and maybe it might be a 5, 6 student class, or 7 or 8 student class, and just and really teach them to them. I think now a lot of education is microwaved, and if you don't get it, you don't get it, unfortunately, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
um but I think I personally believe that it's the educator's responsibility to teach a kid the way they learn.
I see. Wonderful. Okay. Well, for people that want to reach you, they want to know more about your company, please give us your links to social media so that they can do so, please.
Yes, LinkedIn. Definitely LinkedIn is probably the easiest way, and that's just Sean Ingram. Everything is just Sean Ingram. SeaNingram. If you Google Sean Ingram, Sean Ingram Books. My website is seaningram.info, SeaNingram.info. And like you said, that'll we have forums where you can contact me, email me, anything of that sort. We have Instagram. Everything is Sean Ingram, but definitely LinkedIn is probably where you'll see most information, and our website, SeanIngram.info. So if you have any youth, if you have any programs, youth programs, churches, schools, anybody that need me to come out and speak or inspire, that's definitely where you can reach us at.
We really do appreciate our guests who participated in this episode, and we hope you learned something that will bless your day and your life. For all who are interested in learning more about the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast, please visit www.amazon.com and order my book, The Gary Clement Radio Show, When Strong Afro-American Men and Women Stand Up. It covers everything about us and features a variety of Afro-American personalities who speak out about the importance of education and literacy in the Black community. Well, we thank you for tuning into our podcast. Please send us your email address so we can contact you when we have new releases and new episodes and new projects as well. You can reach us at gccpresents@yahoo.com. And also, if you're interested in submitting any materials or want to get in touch with us, please do so by simply sending an email to gccpresents@yahoo.com. That's G as in Gary, C as in Charlie, presents@yahoo.com. So until next time, do take care. And this is a G2 Network Media production.